Boys know him, he always got so big in the crazy, you know, probably tools. You heard him struggle, he brought over knives, help him do it.
Before the mayor starts, I just want to say this is probably the biggest room with audience I've been in almost a year. This is wonderful to be together. I know you guys are all very passionate what's going to happen, but I'm glad you're here. It's nice to see the community.
It's nice to see so many people that fall in agreement.
Well, good evening. Welcome to your town hall. Having reached the hour of 6:30, I call to order this meeting of the Sarview Town Council. And as a reminder, it is being recorded, so it will be on YouTube for future viewing. Tonight's invocation will be given by Lisa Cole, our town clerk, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance led by the mayor and council in attendance. Madam Clerk.
Lord, we are meeting today to conduct matters of business. Guide our hearts and our minds in the spirit of fairness, right thought, and speech. Impart your supreme wisdom upon our activities so that our affairs may reach a successful conclusion. Thank you for being our source of guidance tonight. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Thank you, Madam Clerk. Please join me in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I apologize. I saw a few young people here. Pre-COVID, we always had a student lead the pledge. I sure have been thinking someone would have wanted to come out. Short notice. Yeah, we heard them, absolutely.
But if you would like to do it at a future council meeting, you can talk with Lisa Cole after the meeting, and she will get your contact, and we can have you come and do that.
Thank you. Roll call, please, Madam Clerk.
Councilmember Bracco. Absent. Councilmember Davis. Absent. Councilmember Hicks.
Here.
Councilmember Lusk.
Here.
Councilmember Morales.
Here.
Vice Mayor Egbert.
Here.
Here. Mayor Murphy.
Here.
Quorum present.
Thanks. And as you heard, one of our council members is joining us by phone this evening. Next is item number 5, which is the approval of the agenda. I'll entertain a motion at this time.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, signify by aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We have our agenda for this evening. Item number 6 is called to the public. At this time, any member of the public is invited to address the town council on any issue which is on tonight's consent agenda or any issue which the town council can lawfully act upon at a future meeting. Pursuant to Arizona open meeting laws, the council may not discuss the items, but individual members of the council may respond to criticism made by those who address the council, may ask staff to review the matter, or may ask the matter to be placed on a future agenda item. Most of my cards are for the particular agenda item, but one person wanted to speak during call to the public, and just know we can't comment on that particular item. Jan McClellan. And when you come to the podium, on the bottom right, there's a little button that raises the podium up and down on the box, and there's a little 3 lights, excuse me. Green means you're good to go, yellow means we have a minute left, and then red means you've reached your time. If you can wrap up about that time. Thanks.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and council members for adding the special meeting so that we can address the I-11 during the public time for comment. We really appreciate that. My name is Jan McClellan. My husband and I have been residents of Sarita for over 19 years. Am I close enough? And I am currently the president of the Rancho Buena Vista Homeowners Association, one of the subdivisions west of I-19 that would be impacted by the west route for I-11. No matter how it is aligned, the west option would disrupt and destroy long-established neighborhoods in Sarita that offer a quiet, natural desert experience on larger acre-plus lots, unique and highly desirable, valuable Sarita destinations. This west route would also do irreparable harm to the wildlife and sensitive desert environment currently nurtured and protected by the Desert Museum, Saguaro National Park, and the Ironwood Forest National Monument. As noted in the email and attachments that we sent to you on July 27th, we are requesting that you take official action as a council to oppose this west alternative and pass a resolution to send to ADOT to eliminate the west route from further consideration in the final Tier 1 decision of record so that it does not go to a Tier 2 study and endorse instead the east route that utilizes existing I-19 and I-10 for the Sarita to Marana section. We realize this is a long-term project, but the route decisions that are being made now will determine the location once funding is in place. Given this, we believe it's critical to eliminate this west alternative now from further consideration. For the benefit of people who weren't here during the discussions in 2019 for the draft, the town of Sarita has a major role in this. This section originating at El Toro Road was not being considered as an alternative for the I-11 route until the Sarita Public Works Director and Town Manager back in 2016 submitted a letter to ADOT suggesting it. This is in total disregard of what Sarita voters had approved or in 2015 in the 2035 Aspire Plan. The Aspire Plan, as well as all other earlier roadway studies, described El Toro Road as a future parkway, not a high-speed interstate freeway. In response to the opposition of Sarita residents to this route in the Tier 1 draft stage in 2009, you listened. And, excuse me, and you did reverse the position and instructed the town manager to submit a letter to ADOT recommending considering a different route instead. As our elected officials, you are the voice for Sarita and therefore carry significant influence. It's time to take an unequivocal stand against this west alternative and join the Tucson City Council and the Pima County Board of Supervisors and pass a resolution opposing this route. We're counting on you. Thank you for your time and consideration. And I did give your clerk copies of the email and attachments that we had sent, along with the draft of the Tucson City Council's resolution that they're looking at. And if anybody else wants to get copies of any of those, if you want to sign up this, we can either email this or they have to email it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, thank you, Council and Town Manager, brief summary of current events. Joe, do you have?
Just to note that I did attend the meeting of the downrange bombing site along out by the high school. And it really wasn't a very good meeting. They basically came a long way to simply say they had done a study. And I thank them very much for that. I did advise them and did not find that I received a great deal of support for the fact that the town of Sahuarita, the bomb site is within the future annexation area, and that the study is going to need to lead to a point where we are satisfied that when that land is annexed, it is safe for the future town of Sahuarita, and we do not need to go to the additional expenses of having to repeat by trying to find old bombs out there. So we will continue to follow this. It's going to be one of those long-range things that we'll basically say, yeah, we find a problem, and yeah, we need to deal with it, and well, I'd rather they just get on and deal with it. But anyway, I did attend that meeting.
Thank you. Yes, you can.
Sorry, as a retired public servant in the fire department, I just also wanted to just send out our thoughts and prayers to the families of our first responders locally that have lost their lives. You know, our Border Patrol agent and our EMT from in this last month. So continue to keep our law enforcement, first responders, EMS, firefighters, and of course our military personnel, keep them all in your thoughts and prayers, and we thank them all for their service.
Border Patrol.
Thank you. Yes.
On that note, same thing, similar to that, is I wanted to thank our Public Works and CEP workers and everybody that came out and helped during the last couple of events, these large events we've had with the flooding and the power outages with the wind. A lot of that work was done by our police officers. They kept us safe, kept us going on. Like it was a very hectic weekend, really, week. So we appreciate all the extra effort you guys did to keep our community safe.
And to piggyback off of Councilman Lutloff, when he said the high school, it's Walden Grove, east of us, and I wonder, think there's a bombing range across the street? There's some east of Walden Grove out in that area.
I thought that's why we located the high school over there.
Some would say, right? And to echo those comments also, I think it was 48 utility poles came down during that storm. Most I can remember is FEMA Mine Road years ago when they kind of went down like matchsticks, but 48 is a lot, so appreciation to all. And we were lucky enough, AC-19 Tourism Alliance, which sort of falls under the Green Valley Sahuarita Chamber of Commerce, they got the Rural Policy Forum held down here, and all the way going back to 2016, they bring rural communities together over 2.5 days. Can only see the rural area they're having this meeting in. It was held out in Quail Creek. We appreciate their availability of the facility out there. It was wonderfully done. But all the way back to 2016, they've been in Safford and Wickenburg and other northern communities. This is the first one in Pima County, further south. So we were able to show off a good face of Sahuarita, Green Valley, and the whole I-19 corridor. So appreciation to everybody, and our staff was very involved in that, putting that on and putting it together. So my appreciation for all that hard work. Item number 8 is the consent agenda. I'll entertain a motion at this time.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Consent agenda is approved. Madam Clerk, will you please read item number 9?
Presentation, discussion, and possible action regarding Interstate 11, I-11, Final Tier 1 Environmental Impact Statement.
Thank you. Ms. Lasham, Heidi Lasham is our Assistant Town Engineer, and will present this item. And then what we'll do is, after that, it'll be an opportunity for council to ask questions, and then I'll get to the call to the public cards from all of you. And without further ado, Ms. Lasham.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Today, as you know, we're going to be talking about Interstate 11, the Final Tier 1 EIS, or Environmental Impact Statement. So just a little background, Interstate 11, back in 2015, Congress approved the Fixing America's Surface Transportation, also known as the FAST Act, which normally designated I-11 as a proposed transportation route in Arizona. The designation doesn't include any funding, and you're kind of going to hear that a couple of times through this presentation, that as of right now, there is no funding to go further than the Tier 1 analysis. But at this time, it identifies I-11 as a high priority corridor, eligible for federal funding at some later time. FHWA, or Federal Highway Administration, and Arizona Department of Transportation are conducting the environmental review process for the I-11 corridor from Nogales to Wickenburg, Arizona. The concept of a high-capacity north-south interstate freeway facility connecting Canada to Mexico through the western United States has been considered now for more than 20 years. So what is a Tier 1 EIS? It's an environmental impact statement, or like I said, an EIS. It's a type of assessment required by NEPA for federally funded or regulated projects. An EIS provides the federal agencies with the necessary information to make a decision regarding the proposed project and help determine potential consequences that could result from the project, which impacts can be mitigated, and which alternative best fits the purpose and needs for the project. Of the different types of documents, an EIS is considered the most thorough and considers all possibilities of impact of a proposed project, positive and negative, through this, for many different resources. An EIS provides the federal agencies with necessary information to make the decision regarding the proposed project and helps determine the potential consequences that could result from the project. We look at this time what can be mitigated and from these impacts that we see, and which alternative best fits this purpose and need. The Tier 1 analysis identifies and compares the potential impacts of the corridor of all the alternatives, and also with this alternative is a no-build alternative, which is always part of the process. The build corridor alternative. Each build corridor alternative is a 2,000-foot wide corridor within which a future alignment would be located. The assumed ultimate typical cross-section for the I-11 facility is approximately 400 feet wide, but the specific line and location and width would be refined as part of the Tier 1 analysis. So as you can see here in the Tier 1 graphic there, that's the 4,000-foot swath that is studied at this time. And then in the Tier 2, which is the next phase of this, is when they'll go through and analyze it more on the environmental impact and narrow it down to a 400-foot swath and try to mitigate any of the impacts that are within that corridor. So you can see here, I know it's a bunch of lines, but this is the alternatives analysis that took place during the Tier 1 process. During this process is when it was narrowed down from all these different options to the two options that we see today. The recommended alternative. The rationale for the recommended alternative from Nogales to Sahuarita in the draft Tier 1 EIS is that this route would provide access to high growth areas, achieve a satisfactory level of service throughout the I-11 corridor, and serve key economic centers while avoiding impacts to sensitive environmental resources. FHWA and ADOT identified a recommended alternative in the draft Tier 1 EIS that best met the I-11 purpose and need while minimizing potential and adverse impacts. Sahuarita area comments. So the topics were brought up from the Sahuarita area, and this was reiterated with the letter that was sent. This included concerns from community impact, neighborhood continuity, and the rural desert feel of the community. Some commenters expressed opposition to the general concept of a new highway corridor. Others acknowledged the lack of an alternative regional route and congestion issues along the I-10 route, expressing support for a new highway corridor. Then we move on to mitigation. The town of Sahuarita indicated that we would prefer an alternative that would impact less of the residential neighborhoods and avoided impacts to Anamosa Park. The preferred alternative has been relocated north of the alignment shown in the draft Tier 1 EIS to address these concerns. As you can see, it is important to note that if the alignment shown continuing north along I-19 in the Sahuarita Road area is chosen, this route could negatively impact the residents of Rancho Resort, Entrada del Rio, Rancho Sahuarita Region 7, as well as the Fry's Shopping Center, and also our new Northwest Hospital. So the next step. The preferred alternative carries forward both the west and east options in Pima County, allowing ADOT to make a more informed decision after detailed environmental and engineering studies in the Tier 2 analysis have been completed. Once the 30-day public review period is complete, ADOT and FHWA will work toward a record of decision, or we call it the ROD. That document, which is scheduled to be published in late 2021, will identify a selected corridor alternative for the no-build option. The ROD marks the end of the Tier 1 EIS process. If a build corridor is selected at the end of the Tier 1 study, further Tier 2 studies and evaluations must take place before construction could be considered. The corridor would be narrowed to a highway alignment, as we talked about, the 400 feet wide, and alignment determining where I-11 could be built would be decided during a future phase of design, as well as in a few more environmental studies. Currently, there are no plans or funding, like we've spoken, available to initiate the Tier 2 study. And that's all we have.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor,
do you want to begin?
If I may, I'd like to move the meeting forward somewhat. Wrong glasses, that happens too many times. I'd like to speak to the two options. And basically, what I'd like to start with is the west option. The west option would consider some 70 miles of new highway, basically to the west of Sahuarita and Tucson. There would be severe impacts on both Ironwood National Monument and Saguaro National Park, as well as other resources to the west of Tucson. There will be rather high land acquisition costs involved with this, and the environmental impact statement alone would be a six-figure, seven-figure deal because of the implications, the impacts on the neighboring resources. It comes across my mind that we can no longer maintain our existing interstates, and yet we seem to be in a delayed rush to create 70 more miles of interstate, and take away from the maintenance on our own I-11, which is not a good thing. The new road would have elevation changes, and it's a winding road. For big rigs and semis, that's not the most favorable kind of road to be driving on, as we expect the ups and downs, tired drivers, etc. So we could expect more accidents on that section of road if it were built. The impact to the residential areas off of La Cañada would be extreme, and those impacts would be twofold. If we do not oppose the alternative, the west alternative, and we simply let this go forward, okay, maybe it's going to get done next year, maybe it's going to get done in your grandchild's life, or probably it will never be done. But regardless, we need to take positions now. Because if that alternative goes forward as a favored alternative, residential owners in those neighborhoods are going to be left hanging for the rest of their ownerships. They try to sell their home, and the real estate agent is going to be delighted to say that over there 100 yards you're going to have a major interstate highway. And that is going to have a depleting and very negative effect on our neighborhoods, which we do not agree with. The I-11 with that alternative would be within 100 yards of active mine tailings, and again, who knows what the future of those mine tailings are. The condemnation of homes would eventually occur if the road is placed on the alternative. And again, we don't have to have a dream about what that's all about and how negative that's going to be. Secondly, it is not going to be in favor of the economy of Sahuarita nor of Tucson. What we're actually saying is, well, we want to have an alternate. We want to have a bypass of Sahuarita and Tucson. So basically, all the businesses that are located north of Duval Mine Road are going to have a new interstate disconnecting them from that traffic. And believe me, it would be used by more than just the traffic going west and the traffic that is going back and forth between Mexico and Las Vegas. So it would have a debilitating effect on our economy. At least half of our economy would see less usage, and also a resource of old I-11, which might not get as much attention as it should get. The negative impact to Sahuarita business north of El Toro, very, very high. Okay, so we've got some real problems here that are needing to be addressed. The approximate cost of that new interstate, now I'm going to give you the figures for the road only based on current figures for building an interstate highway. The 70 miles would basically run at $8 million per mile. That's a cost of $560 million based on current values. I projected those values over 10 years with a 30% increase based on cost of materials and supplies. And that 70 miles in 10 years would cost $770 million, almost $250 million to build that 70 miles. It's obscene. On the east option, we have 56 miles of existing I-10 and I-19. We would in effect be responsible for seeing the road widened to 6 lanes at a max. And yes, there will still be impacts to some of the neighborhoods and some of the folks because of the widening of that road. That's going to be a kind of a larger impact on Green Valley than here, but it will be an impact. The only cost associated with the road itself would be the widening to get the acquisition of new right-of-way, to extend the right-of-way somewhat. The road is straight and it's even, and it's a nice road for truckers to be on. It makes for a very satisfactory interstate highway. The approximate cost of the road widening, and this is the road only, to widen the entire 56 miles in lieu of the 70 miles to the west. 56 miles at $4 million per mile comes in at $224 million in 2021. I adjusted the figure a little bit in terms of 56 miles at $4.6 million per mile, and that is based on, again, a 30% increase in supplies and materials, not over 10 years, but over 5 years. So now the cost would be $256 million, or $250 million. A significant increase in the tax in all of the loads that go to building a road. The cost of the road is absolutely off the charts, yet the alternate is expected to be, is thought of. I agree with the audience in the sense that this needs to be, that we need to make a strong statement as a council to the effect that we are in favor of the east option, but we are strongly opposed to the west option for many of the reasons that I've already cited. And Mr. Mayor, I hope that we can proceed along those lines in terms of our discussion.
Thank you. I just had a couple of questions to piggyback off of the funding and, the shorter period, the shorter amount of road. My understanding is to do all of Arizona, to get it out of Arizona to Vegas is about $8 billion to build this road. And I think it's around $230 million into keeping it up. So that's the type of hurdle that all of this will entail as we move forward. Heidi, I know this EIS-2 sunsets at some point. That's why typically they try to tie the funding of the second EIS to the construction. Does the first EIS, do you know, does that sunset at some point?
I believe it does sunset. I don't know the exact number of years, but I can look into that and get back to you.
Okay, so at some point, this probably may have to be done all over again, potentially, depending on timing, correct?
I believe so.
Okay, thanks.
But I will double check and get you.
Thanks. And then for the two alternatives that we showed on there, is the EIS to simultaneously look at both of those alternatives? I know there's a preferred, but does that prevent them to look at both? Will they be investigating both for these mitigations that Councilman Lusk mentioned, like if you get up to the National Forest and they can't acquire that and all this other land, BLM, is private ownership and all those types of things. Do they come back and cost out the hurdles for each of those, or do they only focus on one of those?
So as of right now, the way the Tier 1 is stated, they have two alternatives that they're looking at. So as of right now, if in the final record of decision, if both alternatives are in there, they will be studying both alternatives.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
And that's one of the reasons that I think we need to work as hard as we can to try and eliminate that alternative, the west option. Because I've lived with EISs in the federal sector for many years, and EISs are not cheap. And this one is going to be an extremely expensive one. I'd rather see the money on that spent on maintenance of I-11.
Right. The only thing is, I don't think I don't want the public to be misled that even if
Correct.
we make a statement that they're not gonna go out and do all the studying and do all the due diligence. Would that be correct, Heidi? There's probably.
That is correct, because this is an ADOT project.
Right. And, where if we were talking about building a park in town, we would be the final decision maker on that. But this is a federal, Arizona, ADOT project, on there.
And again, it's one of the reasons that we need to be strong in our response at this point in time. I'm certainly hoping that Tucson will take some of the same steps in terms of the bypassing of downtown Tucson completely. Because again, whenever this happens, if there's a map somewhere in a file cabinet that says there was going to be an alternative in 50 years, there'll be an engineer that finds that thing map and comes back and does it anyway. So it's important that we try and get that alternative off without the power to do so, but still to try and make this work to the advantage of Sahuarita and its future.
Right. The difficulty is when they're looking at the 2,000 foot, even if they go north on I-19, I do want them to look at both of those because there will be impacts. It depends on neighborhood, or do they take out the hospital, or whatever it might be. So, it's important, for me, it's important for at least them to be looking and come back with where that 400-foot corridor actually is going to be. I've been consistent with, we don't want this impacting our residential neighborhoods, but from my opinion, at least it will be going forward to figure out if that's even possible or not.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
The one option that exists for all highway widenings is that you can choose the side of the road you widen on. And in effect, I-11, that choice can be made. That would unfortunately affect one side or the other, but where we have major institutions involved, like a hospital and so on, that could certainly be located. The expansion could occur on the highway to the west instead of on both sides.
And that's what that chart showed, where you had little houses and things like that. The study area is the 2,000, but it can be mitigated, and that's what I'm hoping they're going to be doing, looking at both of these alternatives to see what the mitigation is, and if that's acceptable to us.
Mr. Mayor, I have a quick question.
I know when you put up the map, there was I think it was the orange alternative. If they move forward with this study and they look at both the western one and the I-19 one, this is not the one I was looking for, but,
That one?
right, yeah.
Yeah, that's the red one.
That's the one that's before Green Valley, that purple one. Will they go back to that one if they find that, am I reading that map correctly?
That is the proposed alternative, the blue line.
No, the purple one.
Yeah, I think that's out. I don't think that's part of the study, is it, on this one?
That's one of the alternatives. So if we move forward with allowing these two studies to go, both of them determine that they are not a go, is that the potential that one will come into place? Because that one makes me more nervous than the other two because that bypasses our community completely. And the only traffic that will be traveling down our freeway will be going just the ones to Tucson. And that's my biggest concern about pulling off any of them, is I don't want them to flip to that one.
You want to address that, Heidi? Because I didn't think the orange one, I might be wrong.
Exactly. I just want clarification before I vote on something. I wanted to.
I think it's important to understand that the only option available to us and being in our long-term interest is I-11. Any other option is going to...
Did you say I-11? I-19.
I-19. Oh, numbers. The only thing that I'm concerned about is the only logical one is I-11, I-19, 7, 8, and 1, 19, is the I-19 option. If anything goes to the west of us further south, it's going to totally isolate Sahuarita. and Tucson, and that's going to be a major impact on the economy for a huge amount of years. So it's not so much trying to look for an alternative that works. Our emphasis needs to be on the alternative we have that exists and does work, if that makes sense. Could I have an I-15 someplace?
No, we're confused enough on I-11 and I-19,
Yeah.
we don't need an I-15 on there. Before I forget, Councilmember Morales, did you have any comments before I continue? I just don't want to forget people on the phone. I'll take that as it. Anybody else have comments for Heidi before I move to call for the public?
Yeah, Mayor, I might just reserve some for after public comment, but my stance hasn't changed since 2019, so I agree with both the other members that already spoke.
Sorry, I can't hear you.
You weren't mic. I'm sorry, I need to shut off my mic. I'm just reserving my comments for after public comment, but my opinion hasn't changed since 2019 when we first heard it, and I think largely, almost exactly like the other two council members. I-19 is certainly our preferred route, but I'm a little worried about if there's going to be two routes, narrowed down to two routes, if we have to do an A, B. And that's what I need clarification on also, I think, much like the mayor said.
Okay. At this time, I'll move to the call to the public. Remember, there's a button bottom right to go up and down, and the lights will come on green, yellow, and red. When your time is up, if you come up and state your name and where you reside. I'll begin with Dana, and I'll apologize if I butcher anybody's name because I can't read it. Kiesel?
Dana, do you want to take this, so if anybody wants to use it after using the mic there, we'll just.
I'll bring it down to her.
Oh, okay. I just thought, they might be using that button.
Oh, there's whites there too.
Oh, is there? Okay. Then I'm not-
And just a reminder, don't adjust the microphone because it'll fall.
See that
So that just the toggle switch to your right, that black box
That
on your right.
switch that makes it go
There's a
up
little
and down.
toggle switch on there.
Yep.
Oh, there you go.
Not that way, Robert.
I'm Dana Casebolt. We live on 17020 South Camino de las Quintas. We live like half a block from Toro. And we've lived there 35 years. We voted to establish an incorporated town simply to protect ourselves. And now we're kind of being thrown under the bus, I think, with this, the Sonoran corridor and this I-11 thing. And it's like we were the ones who were here first. There wasn't nothing else, and then now we're being disregarded. And I just wanted to say that I expect our council to stand with us and behind us and make sure that this doesn't ruin our town. We don't need another highway. We already live right next to a highway. We don't need another one, or have to find another place to live. So anyway, I just hope that you do stand by us and take care of us, because that's the whole reason we even wanted a town in the first place. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, a couple things I want to mention. You do not need to give us your exact address.
Right.
If you just say that you're a Sarita resident or Tucson or Green Valley, that's really all we need to know. And then second of all, you may want to have someone on deck.
Oh, that's right, yes.
And then it can go smoothly.
Thank you.
I'm assuming you guys don't all want to be here all night long, so we'll try to go it through.
Well, I was planning on midnight, so.
We're glad you're all here.
And if as a reminder, if I get to your name and, the same thing has been said, you can stand up in place and say ditto or something along those lines, but it's totally up to you. I really don't mind staying here till midnight, but you may. Next is Shane Van Buren, and then after that will be Randolph Moreno. Thank you for that.
I got my partner with me.
Yes? It almost goes down that far. She
Yeah.
the main speaker.
She said no.
Well, anyways, evening, we appreciate you letting us have this meeting. My name is Shane Van Daren. We live here at Sahuarita. We obviously have been very close to paying attention to the I-11. I've been in these meetings before. And anyways, my wife, 5 kids, we live in that area, and back here today. Yeah, we just, we're here for the same reason. We look through the crowd and see a lot of people that we know and have been, church and community and long-term residents that have been in the Los Quintas area. And anyways, we appreciate the words that have been said that have, to me, logically oppose this freeway. But anyways, just kind of the impact of, what I'm obviously concerned about is the impact of our neighborhood having a freeway, another freeway. We're already next to I-19 already. And we understand that, we get that, but having another freeway come in, just not only from like vegetation and wildlife aspects, but just, impacting the homes, families that choose to be on larger properties that want to have their kids in like 4-H and raise animals, and lots of different programs it's awesome for us. We really love where we live. And I think that with this study, it's obviously we're very concerned about as soon as some of these decisions start being made, the impact on relocating families. We have, myself, I'm a firefighter. We have Raytheon folks, Border Patrol, fire, police, there's business owners, there's so many really good families. And just kind of displacing them from that and leaving us in limbo is one of the most difficult things, because not only will it affect the values of our properties, but those that, if it does come through, those that do get paid out for their property through eminent domain, the rest are then like, it's a red zone, it's a red flag zone, and nobody's going to touch those properties. And if you had a job change or something, just to be left hanging with the possibility of not being able to sell your home, it could ruin a family. Anyways, I see I'm about out of time, but we just have a lot of great people that live in the area, and we strongly oppose this, the West Corridor, and we sure hope that you guys can support us and kind of understand that all these folks are here because they don't want this freeway coming right through town. So thank you.
Randolph Moreno, and then Jeannie Regan. That's right.
Hi, thank you for listening to me. I've been around here for 52 years, and I first moved in here in 69.
Can you speak up a little bit? Yeah, there you go.
I moved in Santa Tomas when Estes built the homes, and I moved out of there on 7 acres. The way I see it, the freeway is going right through my 7 acres, and I'm protesting it. My kids went through 4-H, FFA, and all that, and if this freeway goes through, my property is not going to be worth anything. And I just want to let everybody know that I'm very proud to be a Sahuarita person that's lived here. My kids were raised here. 3 daughters went to school here, and I just oppose the whole freeway.
Thank you. And before I go to the next one, I did remember something that I wanted to make sure you all remember, that when we submit something, at the end of this, that's one comment. It's as important, actually probably even more important, if all of you during this comment period. So, the power of all of you here is multiplied, so I don't want you to think, if you're satisfied with our outcome, then you should go home and not put that comment in by the 16th, because I think it'd be very important that your voices also be heard. So just, I didn't want to forget that. Jean, and then Tim Trusper.
Can you hear me?
Yep, it goes the other way, on that toggle, it goes up and down. It's the, there you go.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. My name is Jeannie Brevin. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to address the council and the community members. I live in Green Valley, but I have friends who live within the corridor area, and I also have a family member who has attended the school here. I, like Mr. Lusk, I am a former Interior Department employee. I used to write these things, and I used to be on the other side proposing wildlife refuges, so it's really weird for me to be on this side, but anyway, I'm opposed to not only the West Corridor, but also the entire project. I think the economic basis is a real weak argument, especially since it largely parallels an existing interstate. I think the potential environmental impacts, especially wildlife habitat fragmentation, are too severe, especially in the Sonoran Desert area and going on up, further up through the Avro Valley area and severely impacting the Sonoran National Park. But also the effects on community cohesiveness and structure, especially in this growing town that's just, barely starting to blossom out, and that this would be just a huge kick in the shins to this community. And so I'm hoping that we can oppose this project and at least the Western Corridor. Thank you.
Thank you. Tim Trusper's up, and then Jim McClellan, but did you want to speak again? Yeah. Okay, cool.
Hi.
And then Jim.
I'm Tim Trosper. I'm actually on the town council's planning and zoning committee, so I'm used to being on that side, not on this side. But I just want to let you know, I appreciate you guys' support on what you're doing here. And I think everybody here is on the same side as what you guys are. And the comment cards and stuff, the largest group we had when I was on the when I was on the school board, was we had an argument about the stop sign at the railroad track by one stop sign.
Did the stop sign win?
Yeah, no, the stop sign, there was 5 different jurisdictions that wanted us to tell us to stop, not stop, and go, and not go for the school buses. But anyway, I just want to let you know, thank you for your support here. And I think everybody here heard him say, they're one voice. We are dozens here. So let's all get on the comment cards and see what we can say. Thank you.
Thank you. And then Truman Johnson.
Thank you. I wanted to just speak to the mitigation for that east route, because I know, Mayor, you were talking about wanting to have both of those evaluated and stuff. And I looked at, there was, in 2017, there was an I-19 corridor profile study that was done and looked at the needs, and they, already at that point, they were projecting the need to address safety in bridges in sections of I-19 from Continental Road up to San Xavier, and then from San Xavier up to Tucson. That those two parts of the corridor already were going to need addressing as is. They also said that I-19 serves as a commuter route for communities south of Tucson, up to Tucson, and including Sarita, to go to employment centers in the Tucson metro area. And so they're projecting the increased capacity on I-19 would be needed to accommodate the Sarita growth. As you were talking, Neil, about that need for Sarita residents to get to Tucson, that's primarily the direction that the traffic's going. So the west route wouldn't address that at all. The other thing, they showed that the section from Continental Road up to San Javier in 2014 has 36,855 of the average annual daily volume.
In 2035, the projected is 51,900. So whether or not it's called I-11 or stays I-19, it's still going to have to be addressed. You know, so to spend money to study a western route when you're still going to have to deal with I-19 anyway, it doesn't make sense. Why spend money studying it? So I'm more of a duck.
Thank you. Truman Johnson and then Daniel Millett.
Mr. Mayor, fellow council members, my name is Truman Johnson, and I lived in Sahuarita for 17 years. I also follow Dan. I'm vice president of the Rancho Buena Vista Homeowners Association. To let you know that we have voted unanimously within the board to oppose this west route of the I-11 corridor. And I think Councilman Lust has said it eloquently. I don't know that I can add anything else to what he said, and the reason why we should turn this down. And I would urge the council to vote no on this proposal, and strongly advise or request that they send a letter to ADOT asking them to abandon the idea altogether, if possible, of this I-11 West route. One other comment that was made earlier about in the EIS that this proposal would provide access to high-growth areas. Well, I think that's probably the biggest negative that I can see about coming out of the EIS that the attorney was reading earlier, is that it does anything but provide access to high-growth areas, being Sahuarita and the community of Sahuarita. So I would urge the council to vote no on this proposal, and then send that information to ADOT, as well as the rest of the members here that can contact ADOT opposing this as well.
Thank you. Daniel and then Brian Thompson.
Hi, my name is Daniel Millett. Can everyone hear me?
Yep.
All right. So I want to just thank Councilman Lust for, I think, accurately stating, I think, the majority of everyone's opinion that we don't need a west highway. We don't need any worries about another highway. And to be worried about whether or not we're going to be bypassed, Councilman Egbert, I think is the wrong, perspective, or to look at alternatives, whether or not we can mitigate something going west or not, which is the best route by, Thrive and the hospital or further south. All of those are not acceptable to us at all. We just don't need to even consider that. Just reject that entirely. No quibbling, just make a strong statement. And make a strong statement not based on just a letter, but I think as many types of contexts. Let us know the community. Don't just tell us to go out and write comments. Represent us by fighting for as many avenues as possible. I just don't think that anyone can here agree that we're going to get any benefit out of a westbound highway anywhere. But if you want to make it bypass, south of Green Valley, that's fine with me. Please don't say that's not, because economically, I think we're going to be fine. I know you think about the town's economic future, but the highway is not part of our economic future at all. So don't even think about that as being some sort of saving grace to bring more businesses to Sahuarita. Think about growth. Naturally, people are going to want to commute to Tucson. It's the center. We're going to have plenty of population to satisfy our needs. Just think about also the families that are impacted. Count minimum, 30 eminent domain homes ripped and torn out and displaced, and all the other people. Let's talk about families. If any one of your communities in Quail Creek or Rancho Sahuarita had 30 houses just destroyed, that would be very upsetting to you and your own community. You may not be in that close zone, but we are. And so you want to think about what that means. Fight for those families. If a tornado came through here and ripped out those homes, that would be very concerning. This is worse than a tornado, okay? So I'll save my time. I think this is really, I don't want to hear any equivocating. Respect to you. I think you'll hear us, I think as a whole. I'm not, I guess, as diplomatic as some of the other people, but I'm really concerned about, I think, the language I've heard from some of the councilmen. I go with Councilmember Lust on what he stated. I'd like that to be our position in the town. Thank you.
Mayor, Council, thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening just for a moment. I did see 2 spotted owls today on the dirt bike ride, so I think we're gonna be okay, is what I hope. So if not, I'm gonna find some spotted owls and put them out there, so we should be good. But if not, well, I'm gonna hide, I'll put them out there, they're doing stuff, we can't hurt the area, so we can't put this freeway. So, no, my 2 cents is, you know, another public servant, a couple brothers up here, public servants as well. Thank you for your service, everybody. Just running with the city of Tucson for 15 plus years now, 100,000 calls a year. And I remember saying the same thing a couple years back. A lot of our calls are stemmed right at the freeway. This freeways attract certain clientele at the freeway hotels. We run a lot of freeway calls in these hotels, and they're disgusting. I encourage you to don't ever stay in the freeway hotel because bad things happen in those hotel rooms. But, you know, that's what's going to happen here. We're going to get lots of hotels put in, and it's going to be really, really nasty. It attracts people experiencing homelessness. I'm saying I love people, but they're going to bring all sorts of mental health issues, substance use disorder issues, and that brings a whole other realm of issues into our town. So, which we maybe have a small amount right now we can deal with, but once on a higher level, you know, then we're going to go to the sanctuary city and all that. I'm out, you know. So my hope is that we highly vote no to any of these expansions and just keep our town the way it is because we're doing a great job. So thank you, and that's all I got.
Thank you. That's all the speaker cards I had. If anybody else wants to speak, they can come up. Or if you just wanted to put some comments in afterwards, you can fill out a card and give it to Lisa. Sure. Just make sure if afterwards you put in the speaker card and just give it to Lisa. It helps you track the record. Thanks. There you go.
She has a strong voice, I've heard it.
That was my son Brian. That's my son Shane. Our family, we have lived here for 35 plus years. All my kids, 6 kids grew up here. 5 of them have come back and live within a mile of me. I live in the Anamet Park area. So this, and I have 24 grandchildren in that same area that a lot of them were here tonight.
Can they all make a comment to the...
I wish they could, because I think that their little bit of comment would probably make more of an impact than mine. But as I see this community and where I raised my kids, to see what would happen to the environment is not what our community is about. And for me, I'm passionate about that because I love this community. They all moved back here of their own free will. They're just like, we want to come back and live in Sarita and raise our kids here. With this, we have now changed that. And that, for me, obviously, with that many people involved, is impactful. For me, I'm getting older. For them, they're raising their children in this environment that they feel is safe. A lot of them live very close to the freeway right now. With this happening, I'll guarantee the people that you have here for strength of the community, that are the heart and soul of the community, will leave. Because nothing would draw us here anymore. And to me, that is sad. So for me, I come from a little bit different viewpoint, a little bit higher up that says, this is not something you want to do. This is not something that will be helpful to keep this community that people have left Tucson for, to get this rural environment, to say, let's bring it on. Let's bring them all here. Not going to work. So I hope that you'll stick with us. All of us here are on that same page. And I thank you for your time and your effort.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, may I just add one thing?
Sure.
You know, to me, as somebody who's been involved with long-term planning in so many large national parks and other things, it really has always bothered me that we don't have a law that basically says if you're going to go out to the public and you're going to talk about a multi-billion-dollar project, you should not be permitted to do that within 5 years of the project being done. In the sense that you have the money, you have the plan, you go out and you do the public hearing, and then you implement it. Because this is an example of what happens. Now we have this plan out there to have an alternate that's going to affect your thinking and your sense of awe or comfort for the next 10, 15 years, however long it is.
It could literally be never.
And literally, you know, your grandchildren find it never happened. But in the meantime, all the stress that's out there in the community is, to me, an unfortunate circumstance that we should never allow, in a sense. We should be better at doing our job than simply throwing out the grand idea and then letting it sit there for 20 or 30 years while everybody else worries about it. Just a side comment, but that has always really been a kind of a thing with me. Thank you.
Thank you.
I just want to say thank you.
You're welcome. Just as a reminder, make sure you fill out the card, or Lisa Cole, our town clerk's going to beat you up, so.
My name is Matthew Strasberg. I've lived here pretty much my whole life. I've worked at a lot of big companies and seen stuff from the outside, and it's ridiculous how much money is put into these studies. And like you said, we can't even keep up the freeway we have. Why are we talking about building something else? I tell my kids this, and they understand it. Don't talk to me about wanting something else if you can't take care of what you want, what you have. You want 2 dogs? If you can't pick up and clean up after your dog, why are we even talking about it?
That's why
on these studies and start keep taking care of what we have. You know, Rancho Sarita, if you want everything in your backyard, if that's a freeway, I'm sorry, but we came to Sarita. Sarita was made as a residential place. This isn't going to be a big booming skyscrapers. We built a property on the corner of Sarita Road in La Cañada. Can I ask you guys if anyone is going to be in that building soon? It's been there for a year, and it's just there. And you know, this highway, what is it going to do to anyone wanting to have this? You know, we just need to stay where we're at and take care of what we got and stop spending money on stuff that we're never going to get. And I yield my time back.
Just as a reminder, we're not spending that money. The fence and the ADOT.
I'm on side with you guys.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
are we closing the public comments, or?
Well, do a last call, a couple of people did want to speak. Anybody else? If not, I'll declare the call public closed.
Okay, I first wanted to thank the audience. When my husband was asking what this special meeting was about, I said, I think I'm going to be a human punching bag, where we're going to be attacked tonight and insulted. And he actually asked, he's like, how bad have the emails been? And I will tell you that I went back and I started thinking about them, like, they have been polite, they have been thoughtful, they have not been threatening, which is unique. And then to sit here today and hear your guys' comments that, again, are thoughtful, they are not aggressive, they're not insultive, it is unique. And it tells you the caliber of the residents of Sarita, and specifically in your guys' neighborhood. So first of all, I want to thank you for that, because that's, like I said, unique for elected officials to receive that. I will tell you that when I walked in, you guys are going to like me for a few seconds, and probably like me afterwards. I was kind of thinking of, I'm okay with both of them going up. The chance of it, we'll just kind of wait and see, and then if we have to fight, we can fight. So the other thing I want to say is there is power in being in a council meeting, the seats that you sit in. I speak oftentimes with elementary kids, and I tell them that there is power in numbers when you show up and you're respectful and you share your voices. And it has made me think and be thoughtful on what you have said. And I remember Vice Mayor Conklin, who was the vice mayor when I got elected, he gave me some very poignant advice for a very young council member, young in experience and young in age. And he said, Kara, when you struggle with what you're going to make the decision that most affects the people that you're looking at, and that decision affects them the most. Not the bigger picture, which those were the thoughts that were going through my head as I was listening to you, that if I had a home where you guys were, I would want this gone too. And I understand that. And so I'm putting forth my support towards Lusk in asking, and in our comments, putting forth a motion to remove the west corridor.
Heidi or AC, listening to everybody, did it bring any thoughts to you? Because I know this is a comment on the review process, which is different than the 2019. So I just wanted clarification on, they're probably going to study both, but we can make a statement to that effect, correct? I mean, we're not going to, I don't think, think enough of ourselves that we're gonna make one comment and they're gonna say, we're gonna erase this, but we can take a stand on what we feel based on the two alternatives, correct?
Correct, you can take a stand, you can write a letter,
Right.
you can do this.
And I hope it is a direct statement, in the sense of, this is an issue that needs to be confronted with terminology and words that make it clear that we do not, in this community, support this option. No ifs, maybes, or ands, but we just don't want it, period. That is the thing that we all need to be thinking about. And I have to ask one question, just so in my memory that I know exactly how you all feel. Would anyone in favor of the West alternative raise your hand? So I think that we can clearly say that it was a meeting with a unanimous consent, and that's not bad.
I just wondered, is there something on our website that can directly link them so that community members that aren't here and so that they can, let their friends, is there a link that will, and if not, can we get a link on there? So that community members can just go to our website
I know
and have the I-11 comment?
Yeah, the agenda has a link to that, but we probably would have to put it up separately to go right to the link, so you don't have to go find the agenda from tonight, go down a little ways, and then see the blue highlighting. I think
Well, it's kind of a big deal, so if we can just have it on our homepage and link it, I think, right now, during this time period, so that.
I would also encourage that the town put a Facebook post out there as well, that can easily be shareable.
Yeah.
We've had a really good communications team putting things out on different events. We were like 4-1 against the North Valley from our communications. Look at that little trophy. No. Just we have a good communications team, so based on pushing it out through that. I'm assuming Councilmember Lusk is, staff needs some direction. It can be a letter. I'd ask AC, do you need something from us, or is it pretty clear on what you'd like us to put in place to send up to ADOT, or would you like that in the form of a motion?
I think a motion would probably be preferable, but I get the sense of things. I'll probably craft a letter based off of whatever.
Right.
See you later.
Mr. Hockley?
Mr. Mayor, I think a motion directing the manager to send the letter will be make it clearer.
Okay. Councilmember Lusk, would you like to put that in the form of a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I would say basically that the resolution of the council should be to a motion. If you'd like, I can.
There you go.
Yes. He has not been playing solitaire the whole time. He pays attention.
The motion should basically say that the town of Sahuarita, the community of Sahuarita, strongly oppose the implementation of an alternative called the West Alternative of I-11.
You would like to add anything to that, or suggest anything to be added to
I
that?
believe the motion is to direct the manager to send a letter containing the information that Councilmember Lusk said.
Great.
And that's a good motion.
Okay, I second it.
Any further discussion? We're many hours before midnight. All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
And
They all voted.
I don't think we can go over 7. There's like 7 seats up here. Councilmember Morales? Are you still on? I just wanted to give her a shot to exit. Okay. So, but anyways, it's unanimous on there. And having no more further business for the council, we're adjourned. Thanks for coming out tonight.